Hey everyone, my name is Jennifer Woods, and this week I'm back to discussing TV movies, and I've picked a good one to review. Mother May I Sleep with Danger. And no, not the weird vampire one that came out in the past few years. I'm talking about the 1996 Tori Spelling classic. It also stars Ivan Sergey and Lachlan Monroe. Now those are two guys who are often up to no good in these Lifetime Channel movies. I guess, with both of them in the same movie, they had to flip a coin or something to find out who would play the bad guy. And Ivan Sergey won. But he does impersonate Lachlan Monroe's character, so maybe that was a compromise. This movie came out the same year as the first Scream movie, and it's interesting to note that the short blonde hairstyle I've come to associate with Drew Barrymore in the opening scene of the 1996 horror movie is also on full display in this 1996 TV movie. In all fairness, it's a hairstyle Tori Spelling has become known for in the mid-90s. It just made me think of Scream for some reason, so interesting that both movies came out the same year. And Tori Spelling was a part of the Scream franchise, so I don't think I'm the only one who noticed the connection between her and the Drew Barrymore character. Mother May I Sleep with Danger is about a young woman named Laurel who falls in love with a mysterious young man named Kevin whose parents died in a tragic helicopter skiing accident about a year earlier. Personally, I'd be skeptical of dating someone whose whole family is dead because that's a great way for imposters to get out of having to introduce you to the folks. And I'm sorry, I know that probably sounds biased. There's a lot of people out there who've had tragic histories, and I hate to be judgmental of that. It's just, I'm sorry. I watch way too many Lifetime movies, and this just is coming across as a serious red flag to me. But the protagonist, Laurel, is easily won over by his good looks and charming ways. Her mother has a history of interfering in her life, which makes her mother the mother who cried wolf, and no longer credible when she starts to suspect that her daughter's new boyfriend is not exactly who he seems to be. In fact, he's not at all who he seems to be. There's not much mystery here. The movie opens with some creepy Twin Peaks-style music, and we see the bad guy, Billy Jones, kill a Jenny Garth lookalike with short blonde hair in the opening scene. He's in love with her, but she's looking to move on with another guy named Kevin Shane, and Billy's jealous. After killing her in her kitchen, he cleans the place up and stages her disappearance to look like that of a runaway. I have to say, he goes to way too much trouble to make her look like a runaway, when really all he needs to do is just have her disappear, and the police will come to that conclusion on their own. I mean, she's 17, 18 years old? That's the first thing they're going to think of, that she ran away. She could have diabetes, and her insulin could be right there on the counter, and they'd be like, oh, clearly a runaway. No worries, just give it a week or two, and she'll be coming back. So there's no real mystery here. This guy's obviously a killer. I mean, the title of the movie is called Mother May I Sleep with Danger. You can't get more obvious than that. So anyways, after the death scene in the beginning, we're introduced to the Tori Spelling character, and her name is Laurel Lewison. Lewison spelled Lewisson, which seems like a bit of a convoluted way to spell that name, but there you go. And when we're introduced to her, she's in a college class being lectured to on a book called Daisy Miller. And the teacher's all, oh, what does the book mean? That whole spiel, you know. And then he notices that Laurel's distracted, that she's bent over tying her shoe. And he thinks to himself, I'm going to trip her up. I'm going to get her good. And so what he does is he asks her this direct question. He asks her something along the lines of, do you think this book has anything to say about the modern feminist movement? And she responds back with something like, it doesn't have anything to say about the sexual revolution. And then he's like all impressed. You know, they do a little bit more of a back and forth, and he's impressed because, you know, for some reason he thought that she couldn't tie her shoe and answer a question at the same time. What he should have done was said, hey Laurel, what was I just saying? You know, and then she maybe would have stumbled a bit and was like, you know, the way that people aren't paying attention, you know, and the teacher, you know, kind of puts him on the spot and like, what was I just saying? But no, he actually asks her the question he wants her to answer, and surprise, surprise, she answers it. So right away, she's shown to be this goody-goody teacher's pet. The theme of the book, Daisy Miller, apparently runs directly parallel with the plot line of this movie, which is that a young woman falls in love with a man and gets herself killed for it. Will Laurel actually lose her life over a guy? Well, you have to watch the movie to find that out. I will tell you some stuff, but I'm not going to tell you that. So in addition to being a little smarty pants, Laurel is also aspiring to be on the track team. And she's been doing a lot of running to practice and train for that. But her mother has reached out to the coach and let her know that she might want to reconsider letting daughter Laurel onto the team because Laurel has a history of eating disorders. Most mothers try to help their kids achieve and to get on the sports teams that they want to get on. This mother actually tries to keep her off them. So that sets up a little bit of a conflict between mother and daughter that will become very important as the movie progresses. And the coach is played by Terrell Rothery, who looks uncannily like Kim Cattrall. I've seen her in tons of TV movies, and I always think to myself, oh, is that Kim Cattrall or is it Terrell Rothery? It's really hard to tell. Laurel, apparently, is the subject of many a man's fantasies on campus, or at least two men that I know of. So this guy named Jackson comes up to Laurel early on in the movie, clearly trying to get her to go out on a date with him, asking her to the bar where his band plays, and she's like, I don't know, I'm too busy, leaving the door open a little bit so that he can keep pushing, and then she's like, I can't be dating a guy in a band, I don't do that, and then he's like, well, you clearly misunderstood. My band's not any good, so you can date me because I'm not in a good band. Love that logic. But she keeps going on and on until finally she kind of throws out as sort of an aside, but what she probably should have opened with, I'm seeing someone. I'm kind of seeing someone. I can't date you because I'm seeing someone else. Something you could have said right at the start. But anyways, she's seeing someone, as it turns out, surprise, surprise, it's Billy, who goes by Kevin Shane now. We find out Laurel's dating Billy, or as he goes by now, Kevin, when Kevin arrives at Laurel's mother's house for dinner. So it's after dinner that Laurel's mother finds out that Kevin rides a motorcycle, and she finds this out in the weirdest way. When he said he had a long ride home, she picks up on his choice of words. She's like, ride? By the way, I never would have picked up on that. It would have gone right over my head. In fact, it did go over my head until I thought about it for a moment. But this mother's senses must be on red alert. And he's like, yep, you caught me. I ride a motorcycle. And so there you go. The truth is out. Her daughter's dating a motorcycle riding crazy person. But what do you expect? The movie is called Mother May I Sleep with Danger. And it can't exactly be called Mother May I Sleep with Danger if the crazy person drives a station wagon. Now, can it? Or maybe it can. Maybe it can still be called that. Of course he rides a motorcycle. Of course he does. Of course. And he could have just let it go, but he digs himself in deeper here. He says, yeah, I ride a motorcycle because I couldn't afford a car because I'm a med student. Seriously? You could have just let it go. I mean, nobody buys a motorcycle as a last resort. That's usually first choice. It sounds a little bit premeditated there, Billy Kevin. So, at this point, not only is her daughter dating a motorcycle riding fiend, he understands that this is the wrong thing for him to be doing. The fact that he tried to justify it means that he can no longer plead insanity. He knows the error of his ways. And then, because, he has to just keep digging himself deeper, just digging that hole, he goes on to mention that he's involved in this program called CareShare. And then Laurel's mother's like, oh, what a coincidence. I know someone involved in CareShare. Oops. So there are a lot of red flags here. Not just the motorcycle. There's the fact that he's already making plans for their future, and having careers that complement each other. The mother, actually seems to think he's maybe moving too fast, but he's like, no. This is basically who he wants to spend his whole life with, and they've known each other for 2 minutes? Also, both his parents are dead. They died in a helicopter skiing accident, which is really convenient, so now she can't meet his parents and confirm that he's actually who he says he is. Now, Laurel, on the other hand, she tells her mother, it's just sex. And her mother's like, hope you're being careful. And Laurel's like, yeah, of course. And the mother's like, yeah, go at it. I'm so glad that you're just having sex with this crazy person and that you're not actually getting serious. Because, so long as it's just sex, I don't care if he's Bundy himself. And yeah, I may be paraphrasing here, but I feel like that's basically the heart of their conversation, what it boils down to. I think I hit the nail on the head right there. But guess what? Laurel lied to her mother, because a little later she's talking with Billy, and she's like, you gonna love me forever? You gonna protect me forever and ever, 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 ever? And I'm like, okay, calm down here, crazy meatloaf girlfriend. Clearly you want more than sex. Now, Billy Kevin is not Meatloaf. So he's not saying, let me think about this for a moment. Let me decide if this is really what I want to do for the rest of my life. Spend my life with you, crazy lady. No, he's on board with this nonsense. These two people are perfect for each other. And then she goes off to, do her thing, walk around, live her life, while he stands back and watches her from a distance. And there's a crazy Stalker music that plays in the background, as it tends to do in these movies. And this is when things start to spin out of control here. She starts to realize she's in way over her head. She's coming home from like a 2-hour run one night, walking into the dorm, and he follows her in. And by the way, this is not a co-ed dorm, which she makes sure she lets him know. This is not a co-ed dorm. You have no business being here. But he follows her inside, and he's like, where were you? You said you were going to be at the library. Why weren't you at the library? Basically getting all Fred Savage, and no one would tell on her. And so this is where we start to see a little bit of his possessive side, which, by the way, we've been seeing all along. But this is the first time she starts to realize there's something rotten in Denmark. But then he buys her flowers and apologizes, and they kiss and make up. There's a lot of makeout scenes in this movie, but there's absolutely no Sophie B. Hawkins to be heard. And that's a little surprising to me. If you've seen my videos before, I know I've said that Sophie B. Hawkins is like a staple of TV movies. They love to play her during makeout scenes. But maybe it's just the non-toxic makeout scenes. Maybe that's the thing. Maybe it's, you can sleep with danger. It's okay to sleep with danger. It's just you're not going to have Sophie B. Hawkins serenading you while you do so. Maybe that's when she really decides to push that copyright ownership. So Billy goes on to love bomb her, going on and on about how wonderful she is, how she has the perfect body, but how she would look so much better if she had short blonde hair. Gee, I wonder why he thinks that. Could it be because his last victim had short blonde hair? I guess it's just a coincidence that Tori Spelling's hair just happens to be short and blonde. How convenient. So Laurel surprises her mother by cutting her hair and dyeing it blonde. And surprise, surprise, she looks good as a blonde because that's like Tori Spelling's signature hairstyle. I don't actually know if that is her natural hair color, but it's her signature hair. So of course she looks good as a blonde. So Laurel goes on to defend Billy when others suggest that maybe he's not the right guy for her. And Billy is trying to figure out what to do about the real Kevin Shane, because he's still out there applying for colleges, checking into motels. So Billy's got to figure out what he's going to do about the fact that the guy he's impersonating is still out there, making his presence known. So now Laurel's mother is starting to notice some weird things about Billy Kevin. For instance, Laurel states that the summer before he was a sous chef, and the mother's like, I thought he was volunteering for CareShare last summer. And Laurel's like, well, maybe it was 2 summers ago, and easy mistake to make. But the mother is starting to get a little suspicious. She doesn't like the fact that her daughter is giving up her dreams in order to pursue these new dreams with Billy. She doesn't really believe that her daughter's being authentic to herself. She thinks that she's being pressured by Billy, or Kevin, as she knows him, into being someone she's not. So Laurel's mother starts checking up on Billy, aka Kevin, and finds out some weird things about him. The fact that, his family could not have been involved with CareShare because she knows someone who's part of CareShare, and his math isn't mathing, his, facts aren't lining up. So I don't want to spoil anything, so I'll just kind of give a general synopsis of what happens from here on out. Billy decides to meet up face-to-face with the real Kevin. I won't get into the details. I will say this, though. The real Kevin asks him about the girl from earlier, the one that Billy killed, named Erin Meadows. And he's like, hey, whatever happened to her? I thought you were interested in her. And I'm thinking, this is weird. How does Kevin Shane not know that Erin is missing? I mean, I would think that would be a real big deal in their town. So that was kind of weird. And of course, it doesn't mean anything. Kevin's not guilty of doing anything to her. It was Billy who was guilty. So it's just a weird inconsistency. And then also, we find out that the real Kevin's parents are actually dead. So what I thought was a red flag is actually true, just obviously not for Billy. It's true for Kevin Shane. But since he's impersonating Kevin Shane, he kind of has to take on his backstory. Which is too bad, because that was like a really good red flag. I mean, that is the kind of thing someone would make up so that you wouldn't be suspicious when you don't meet their parents. But, as it turns out, it is true. Just, not for Billy, for the real Kevin. So Laurel's mother decides to have a talk with her, and the words she uses are, "We need to talk about Kevin." And that's kind of funny, because there's actually a book that came out a few years after this movie called We Need to Talk About Kevin, and it was turned into a movie. And I don't know if the author, Lionel Shriver, watched this TV movie back in 1996 and decided to name her book after that one line from the movie. It would be kind of funny if she did. It might just be a coincidence. What is it, though, with guys named Kevin, right? Anyways, Laurel's mother she wants to have a talk with her, but, mother's known for her snooping ways. Laurel's having none of it. She's fine, thank you very much. So she's like, F you. I don't really care. I don't really want to hear what you have to say. So then Billy buys a cabin, and he shows it to Laurel, and at first Laurel's like, oh, this is so great. This is wonderful, perfect. But then she's like thinking, maybe it's a little bit too far off the beaten path, and she's not too happy about the fact that he keeps delaying having the landline installed. He blames it on the company who's supposed to come in and get it hooked up. But she's not comfortable with the fact that they're out in the middle of nowhere and they don't have a phone. And this was before cell phones. So having hit a brick wall with her own daughter, Laurel's mother decides she's going to talk to Kevin directly. She tells him that she knows what he's up to and he's not fooling her. And he's like, your daughter and I would rather be dead than listen to your BS. I mean, no offense. And I have to say, I don't find that particularly disturbing at all, do you? I mean, he sounds like the typical Romeo and Juliet response. But yeah, he basically tells the mother to get lost. And then he informs Laurel that her mother came to him to tell him about Laurel's past eating disorder. And Laurel is not happy about this at all. She's like, how dare my mother tell my boyfriend about my past? That stuff is private. But of course her mother didn't come to tell him this. He just wants to drive a wedge between Laurel and her mother, which, isn't hard to do. The two already pretty much hate each other. He's just given that dead horse one last solid whack. And they kiss some more. But no Sophie B. Hawkins. So I'll just stop there. You'll have to watch the movie for yourself to find out how it all ends. I mean, you probably already figured out the ending by now. It's not a great mystery. But I don't want to spoil it all for you and spoil the fun of having it all unraveled for you. So I'll stop there. I do remember years ago watching this movie on TV. My grandmother walked in on me and she's like, what are you watching? And I'm like, oh, it's just a movie where the guys killed a lot of people. And then the girlfriend's starting to get suspicious. I think that pretty much sums it up. That's a good summary right there. I would give this movie 3 to 3.5 stars. It's not my favorite TV movie. Tori Spelling's not my favorite actress, but it's decent. And it's for some reason it's a fan favorite. So I had to discuss it today. But that's all I have. I hope you have a great day and take care.